In 3, 2, 1, action.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the October 20th work session of the Croton Harmon Board of Education to order. And before we move on to approval of the agenda, I'm actually going to toss it over to Superintendent Walker for a moment.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, both in person and virtually. I wanted to start by sharing and saying that, in my view, tonight is a special opportunity for us as a team and as a school district community. We have the opportunity tonight to discuss a collective vision for our work together toward the future of teaching and learning in our system, and also to envision the learning spaces in schools which align with that vision. And to have these areas of work occur simultaneously, we know is a significant undertaking, but also a special opportunity for every Tiger, for every member of our school community. And simply put, I would love for all of us tonight to be able to share the video of this meeting and say this was a meeting that was truly about the future of Croton Harmon schools. As we begin tonight's discussion, we'd like to start by recognizing a truly special group of people, 7 members of our community who have signed up to lead, to serve the young people of our community, and in doing so, help to set the tone for our entire school system, that we are here for our students, the children of our community, and to make sure that our schools are places of inspiration and of hope for all of them, and for the amazing faculty, staff, and community who help to make that so. These are 7 people who give of their most precious resource, their time, to a cause greater than themselves, and who give of themselves, their thoughtfulness, and their dedication, not just to benefit their own children, but to benefit the children of their neighbors, their friends, and of people they've never met. That commitment to public service and to public education deserves our most sincere gratitude. On behalf of every member of this special and amazing school district community, I say thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy Board Appreciation Week to our wonderful Board of Education members. As we spent some time in our schools over the past few days, we didn't have to search far to find people who also wanted to express their appreciation for each of you and what you do for our schools and community, including some folks who I think you as board members will find very familiar. Thank you to our district's wonderful technology and communications specialist, Greg Cavallari, for putting together this video, and please enjoy, board members.
I would like to give a very special thank you to our Croton Harmon Board of Education for their timeless effort and for always advocating for our students here at CET and throughout all of our schools. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you very much.
Happy Board Appreciation Week.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much to our amazing Board of Education for supporting our staff, our students, and also the arts. Happy Board Appreciation Week.
To the members of the Board of Education, I just want to say thank you for your continued support of our Croton Tiger athletic program. Go Tigers!
Happy Board of Education Week. Thank you for all you do in supporting all of our events.
Happy Board Appreciation Week, and thank you for supporting our schools. Thank you, board members, for your dedication and hard work.
Thank you to the Board of Education for supporting all our students.
Happy Board Appreciation Week. Thank you for supporting the kids today and tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your collective dedication, support, and innovation when working with the faculty, staff, and students in the Croton Harmon School District. We're so lucky to have your support.
Happy Board Appreciation Week. Thank you on behalf of all students. We would like to thank you for your dedication and for advocating for the learning community.
Thank you to our Board of Education for always supporting us in bringing our vision to life for all of our students, staff members, and community members. We appreciate your tireless service and advocacy on our behalf and look forward to developing as a future-focused school district alongside you. Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you so much for all the work you do. I really appreciate, and all the students appreciate, the fact that you care so much about student voice, and personally, I have really enjoyed working with you all. So again, thank you so much, and happy School Board Appreciation Week.
I'd like to say a thank you to the Board of Education. Thank you so much for being partners in education, for all the administration, and for all of our students. We really appreciate your support.
Happy Board Appreciation Week.
Thank you so much for all of your hard work, your time, and devotion to our community and our district. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Just want to tell you how I feel about Board Appreciation Week. I feel so appreciative for the Board of Education that we have here in the Croton Harmon schools. We have a board that we could count on, that dedicates themselves to the work that we're all engaged in. And I just want to say thank you for your support of our school, of the students, and of me, and everything Croton. Thanks so much.
Happy Board Appreciation Week. Thank you for advocating on behalf of all of us.
Thank you for supporting the school, the students, and our whole community.
Happy Board Appreciation Week.
Thank you for all you do for the students.
Thank you for your dedication, commitment, and ensuring that we have a good childhood.
Happy School Board Appreciation Week to our amazing Board of Education.
Thank you for all you do for helping us and our students here at PVC.
We would like to express our gratitude for all that you do for the Croton Harmon School community.
We appreciate your ongoing support, and we couldn't do it without you.
Happy Board Appreciation Week.
We just wanted to take a second to thank you for everything that you do to support our entire educational community.
And thank you for your leadership and for helping us to set a tone in our district that we care for every Tiger student, faculty, staff member, and community member. Thank you.
Hi, Dad. Just want to say thank you for everything you do for the Croton Harmon School District and the Board of Education. And here's to 20 plus more years.
Thanks for all the weeknights and weekend retreats you've given up to the Croton School Board.
Happy Board Appreciation Week.
Thank you for volunteering your time and your continued dedication to the Croton Harmon Tigers, past, present, and future.
That was amazing. Thank you. Everybody took the time to make that, all the time you took away from everything else you have to do.
I know.
That was
Yeah.
amazing. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Can we have that somehow?
I know.
Please, absolutely.
And thank you for putting that all together. I know.
Yes.
I don't know what you bribed my children. I'm done. I
We'll
know
do a
idea.
video of outtakes of these. 1999 to benefit the school district's facilities project.
All right. Oh, well, thank you again. And now recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. We will now move into new business. And first up, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the resolution confirming SECRA lead agency and issuing negative declaration of significance as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move into our discussion of our future facilities plans. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Walker.
Yes, thank you again, Sarah. And as I shared earlier, I truly believe this is a special night for us as a system and as a community, and it's my pleasure to have a chance to speak again about the opportunity that we have in front of us as a school district community related to envisioning the future of our school facilities. And it will be my honor to recommend that the board approve this project as the next item on the agenda. For our community's benefit, I wanted to share again that we began this process with a vision for a project in the future of our schools, which balanced infrastructure priorities with a future-driven vision for the future of our schools and what we want the experience of our students to be like 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years and beyond into the future. We've called it the Future Facilities Project. And again, from the outset, our goal was to, along with the work of the outstanding Future Facilities Planning team, to design a project for the community's consideration that balanced the concepts of infrastructure with teaching and learning enhancements to our athletic facilities, as well as those that support the arts. And I believe that the facilities team has done an outstanding job in creating a project for the community's consideration that does all of those things. We wanted to make sure that we, again, give the community an opportunity to take a look visually, graphically at the proposed enhancements to the program by location. And so you see those there. As well as several aspects of our safety and security infrastructure that we want to make sure the community is aware of that is included within the proposed project. Included enhanced building access controls, high resolution security cameras in additional locations at all schools, additional access card readers allowing for swipe card access for faculty and staff at new locations at our buildings, and improving our internal communication mechanisms through enhanced Wi-Fi support in and around each of our school buildings and around Spencer Field. Additionally, we'll be looking to add a security vestibule here at the high school that we'll show you a conceptual rendering of shortly. And the addition of blue lights, which are used to notify members of the staff and student body of an emergency situation, particularly in larger, high traffic or high use areas where an announcement or other alarm may not be readily audible. And so we would propose the addition of those lights within our facilities as well. Here's a conceptual rendering of what the security vestibule would look like here at this building. So this is a vantage point of a space that frankly isn't as big as this rendering would make it appear, but you're actually already inside the building at this point. So you picture that we would put new exterior doors essentially at where the overhang entrance of the building is now. And so upon entry into those, this would be where you would engage with Mike or another member of our security team before being allowed into the building as a visitor. And again, this, like all of our other renderings and all the other aspects of the process, are in a conceptual phase at this point. And assuming that the community were to support this vote on December 13th, the next 3 to 4 months after that, January through March into April, would be time for our wonderful colleagues and supports at KG&D Architects to be here in the district, working with, in this case, members of the administration, board, and our security team to envision exactly what this space would look like. Additionally, we want to make sure the community is aware of several aspects of the project that address priorities related to health, wellness, and sustainability, including where possible new HVAC components that would move us toward limiting our dependency on fossil fuels and moving toward high efficiency heat pump systems, as well as where possible ventilation systems that would use energy recovery components. These two areas are in alignment with the 2021 New York State Clean Green Schools Initiative, as well as, of course, with replacement of roofing systems at several of our buildings, allow for increased solar array placement where there aren't currently solar panels. Beyond that, and we were excited to share earlier this week that our first electric school bus has arrived up at the transportation center. We anticipate that to be the first of many within our fleet going forward as part of our continued focus on electrification of our school bus fleet. And so the project provides for funding to allow for the increased infrastructure and electrical wiring that will take place need to take place in order to charge those buses, as well as installation of bottle filling stations where all of the current drinking fountains are in all of our schools. I'm happy to have Denise, our outstanding Assistant Superintendent for Business, speak a bit about the proposed costs of the project in a number of different lenses.
So this is an image of the proposed cost by building as they relate to infrastructure and program enhancements. The orange, which is infrastructure, as you can see, is comparable cost buildings, and the blue, which represents the program enhancements. You can see we have at our flagship high school, soon to be 100 years old, we have considerable programmatic enhancements, and I'll get into that briefly later. But just to give you an overview, CET is valued at approximately $7.5 million. PVC Middle School, approximately $8.6 million, and then the high school at $19 million. And then Spencer Field is 8.5, and then the transportation and district office approximately 1.8. I am not going to go into too much detail. We've covered a lot of the programmatic enhancements in previous presentations, but I'll just give you a moment to take a look at that. As far as the infrastructure costs related to CET, We have some flooring and ceiling work in the cafeteria wing by music and the entryway. Some roofing related to roofs that have reached their useful life. And some HVAC equipment and hot water heaters, etc. All the fun stuff. Then we have PVC. So the flooring and ceiling work at PVC is the highest over all of the other buildings. The older portion of the building has a lot of stucco. So there are that will require some additional remediation to repair that work. We also have a replacement of a roof mounted chiller, some duct work in the 3rd and 4th grade wing, repaving of the parking lot. Some sidewalks, we'll be redoing the sidewalks on Larkin, Thompson, and Maple, and just some water main and utility work. Croton High School. So here we have some roofing and exterior masonry, water and sewer main replacements, walkways, paving of the lot, and some perimeter fencing. We have Spencer Field, self-explanatory. We have the new turf, new track, concession stand, restrooms, lights, bleachers, press box, additional parking between about 5 to 12 spaces down by the lower field, and the scoreboard. And transportation and district office. So transportation will be reorganizing the transportation lot to facilitate the implementation of our electric buses. We're enhancing the electrical capacity there and hoping to eventually prepare for full integration of electric buses. Also doing some roofing and some water and stormwater upgrades due to some Department of Health requirements. And then in the district office, we will be doing some emergency site lighting, walkways, and roofing. I'm gonna pass it over.
Thank you. This is a slide that folks have seen before, but we wanted to share it again as a way of visually representing what the future facilities planning team sees as a balanced project. And so this is a color-coded way of looking at how the various aspects of the project align with the priorities of infrastructure, athletics, teaching and learning, and the arts across all of our buildings. And due to several factors, but most primarily some really significant and thoughtful long-term financial and facilities planning by people in this room and many others, this is an opportunity in time where we're able to make this kind of impactful enhancement to our system and be able to do it in a way for our community that is tax neutral. And so one of the great joys of my job is I get a chance to talk to a lot of people, both in the schools and in the community. And I think by far the question I get the most after folks saying to me, Steve, the project sounds great. We're so pleased with the vision for the future of our schools. What exactly does tax neutral mean? Right? That's not a term that a lot of folks get a chance to think through or engage with very often. And so we wanted to spend a couple of minutes just talking through that concept. I'll be able to do it in more layman's terms, and if I get this wrong, Denise will jump in and let me know. But in general, to boil this down, when we say tax neutral, what we mean is that there is no increase in the tax levy for our residents as a result of the project. And so then the second most commonly asked question is, Steve, $45 million is a big project. How is it possible that this is able to be done without increasing taxes on the community's residents? And so really there are three all important factors and ways that this comes together. The first is that the project has been intentionally and thoughtfully designed to maximize the amount of building aid from the state that we're able to get from the project. And so due to that outstanding work of the future facilities team and significant leadership from Denise, the project is slated to receive approximately $18 million of state aid on a $45.5 million overall project. In addition, due to outstanding short and long-term financial stewardship by this board and leaders, we'll be looking to use about $2.5 million of funds from the district's current capital reserve. And additionally, and this is the part that perhaps becomes the most technical, it becomes a function of timing related to current debt service. And so when we say debt service, what we're talking about are costs associated with principal and interest on past borrowing that the district has done. And so every year, as part of the annual budget, on average, about $4.5 million, between $4 and $4.5 million of debt service is included as part of the district's annual budget. After next year, after the 23-24 school year, a significant portion of that debt service, about $1.3 million, will be paid off, and then so comes out of the debt service, and so therefore out of the budgetary calculation. And so by timing the payments associated with this project to align with that $1.3 million in debt that's falling off, and making sure that the amount of the annual debt service is less than 1.3 million, we're able to say that overall that amount is equal to or less than the current amount. And so that same amount of money gets put into the budget each year. No additional impact on the tax levy then is resulted from that project. Did I get that right, James?
Yeah.
All right. Good.
Now he's going to bring me in to confuse things.
Yes.
Okay, so on the ballot, you will see, voters will see one proposition. It will be one proposition with 4 components. The first defines the project scope. So we're required to document the scope of the project. This language here discusses all of which we shared with you in previous presentations and tonight regarding the scope of the project. Item number B authorizes the district to expend $2.5 million in our 2016 capital reserve to fund a portion of the project. Now we get to C, where things get a little bit more complicated. C relates to the bond financing of the project and enables the district to borrow funds that will replace the existing debt that we have. So we have debt that is falling off that will be replaced by the new debt. As Superintendent Walker shared, that $1.3 million of debt that's falling off will be replaced by the new bonds. And though there will be no additional cost to taxpayers related to this project, the authorization to issue bonds still needs to be granted. So that's what this language refers to. So to clarify or confuse, local finance law states that a school district must have that in a school district, a bond resolution cannot be adopted unless a tax is authorized by voters. And that's according to also New York State education law, which determines what a district needs to vote on. So bonds are considered general obligations, meaning that the district is obligated to guarantee payment. The guarantee is that the Board of Education is granted the authority to levy the tax to ensure that they can pay back the bond. So that's what this refers to. Do I have any questions?
No.
Neil?
Yeah, the one question that I have, or clarification going back to item A, is, and it goes to some of the costs that we've talked about, is that in item A, it talks about the scope of the project and the different items we've talked about. And in facilities, future facilities planning team, et cetera, we talked about how cost will be, how much we anticipate things will cost, but it says, provided at the end, provided that the cost of the components of the project as set forth in detail in the plan, and I think we should say the plan is available in the district office, meaning everything we have looked at and all of our documents that are on the website as well, as set forth in detail in the plan, may be reallocated among such components if the Board of Education shall determine that such reallocation is in the best interest of the district. So my question is, and I think maybe this is for clarification of the public when we've been talking to the public, when we're talking about inflation, et cetera, is that this, I think, I just want to get your take on this and perhaps our experts who are with us. We're borrowing $43 million, taking $2 million out of our reserve. If costs go up such that we're not able to do everything, what is the process? One can just describe the process by which the board will do the allocation or reallocation that is described in Part A of the resolution.
I believe, and I'm going to refer to Dan, but I believe that the board has independent authority to make those decisions. I don't believe that any further vote or action is required. But let me just introduce Dan Birmingham. He's with Hawkins Delafield, our bond counsel.
Hi, how are you? To answer Mr. Haberman's question, Ms. Haber's question, that section there at the end of paragraph A talks about reallocation of the $45.5 million of project. The project as embodied in the what's called the project is the, pardon me, let me put this on, is a scope that was prepared by KG&D Architects. It's called the proposed project scope of the 2022 district-wide capital project. It's roughly about a 2 or 3 page report that KG&D put together that pretty much in very broad parameters describes the project at each school, as was pretty much set forth in the presentation today by the superintendent. That is the project, and the voters would be asked to approve the project in December. That project in all substantial components has to be completed for $45.5 million. And your question, I believe, Mr. Haber, is what happens if it goes over?
Or if the costs go up.
If the costs go up.
And so that we, the body, administration and board need to scale back the project.
Well, that the end paragraph or the end phrase of that paragraph is not meant to address that circumstance.
Okay.
What the end phrase of this paragraph is meant to address is the individual cost components as set forth in that plan. If the roof work at the high school in that plan costs $2 million for the sake of argument, but after bidding it comes in at $1.5 million, you can reallocate that extra $500,000 to the windows that came in at $2 million when you thought they would come in at 1.5. That's what that language is meant to address. Your question, I think.
Well, that's helpful for us all to understand.
Yes.
Then you go to my question.
Yes. Your question is not, has nothing to do with that phrase.
Correct.
Your question is, what happens if the project comes in over? The board should strive to complete the project in all substantial components or in all substantial respects to what the votes approved. And there's ways to do that, and I can defer to KG&D as far as value engineering instead of, and again, I'm going to be absurd, putting Brazilian teak wood on the walls, put up paneling. Instead of putting terrazzo tile on the floors, and again, none of that is in their plan, but terrazzo tile on the floors.
Well, except.
Wait.
That's right.
Okay, but there are, I would imagine, not being an architect or in the construction trades, there's many things you could do to what's called value engineer a project, and that has been done in many other projects. I would imagine, I would defer to the architects to talk about that, but you'd want to try and complete the project in all substantial and material components for the $45.5 million.
However, the value engineering that you're discussing, I think, speaks to Neil's comment in that if we are halfway through the project and let's say bids are coming in much higher than expected, we can downgrade certain components of the project or reduce the, like you said, the scope of them to meet the project components.
You'd want
And
to,
the board has that latitude, correct?
you'd want to fulfill the programmatic aims of the project. And to fulfill the wishes of the voters. Now, a lot of that is divining what was the will of the voters. It's a judgment call, but you wouldn't want to frustrate the will of the voters. You wouldn't want to wholesale cut out parts of the project because you simply can't. You need to stop the process at that point and analyze where are we if we're 30% through the project, and my gosh, our bids are coming in at 60% of the project. You'd want to stop and value engineer and figure out where you are and make some considerations as to what you do. And this wouldn't be the first time that these decisions would have to be made. There are some tough decisions to be made. You go back out to the voters and ask for more money. Some districts have done that. It's not a good decision to make. It's not an easy decision to make, but those are the choices that the board would have to face if that was the case.
I have a question. With respect to Neil's question, that last line.
Yes.
What triggers this as a board? What
Yeah.
should we be looking for that would trigger us to have to approve reallocation of funds?
Again, don't put too much stress on that because that last phrase, and I'll answer your question. I'm not trying to dodge it, but that really just deals with the numbers that were in the KG&D plan
Right.
that allocated certain amounts for certain portions of the project.
Right.
That would just simply be because they're at the conceptual phase at this point. They can't come up with final plans and specifications until after the vote by law. They
I
can't do that.
understand.
So it would just be something, the plans that were dated October 13th said, again, the roof would cost $2 million. And if the roof came in at $1.5 million, it would just simply be a board resolution saying, we're going to award the bid at $1.5 million, not $2 million.
It would be not unlike change orders that
Exactly, yes.
we've done with other,
Right.
with other work that we've done in the building. We've had a change order on something where the cost of something shifted. So it's similar to that.
Right, that last phrase was put in there, so it didn't marry you too tightly to the numbers that are in the plan. But we put the plan in there so that people would know, so that the voters would have the opportunity to refer to some sort of concrete document, but not marry you to it to the. It's really just to give you that kind of flexibility. That's why that's put in there.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question with respect to Neil's question? To what extent, when the costs were estimated, to what extent was there kind of a forecasting of potential higher prices and wiggle room?
That wouldn't be a question for me to answer. That would be-
Well, you want to just-
Yeah. Thanks for letting me off the hook.
Thank you. Good evening, Walt.
Good evening, everybody. A couple things I want to address. The first one is about cost control, not value engineering. So we are going to, throughout the process, with our partners, Triton Construction, who's going to be working as construction manager. At every phase of every step of the process, we're going to estimate the project so that we don't get a surprise on bid day that says, oh, we expect our roof to be $1 million, it's $2 million. So this concept of decision making and fine tuning the project is integral to the design process because we have a fixed budget, we have a scope, and then 3 years from now we have to deliver that whole project. And there's a lot that can happen between now and then. The second part, the second item I want to address is future casting of construction costs. And we've included a fairly healthy escalation amount. We estimate escalation for a project like this on a yearly basis and we estimated on a quarterly basis. But we've worked with Triton to develop an escalation amount per year going through the entirety of the project, and that changes a little bit year to year, and it's really a projection. So there are a number of data points we can look at. Probably the easiest one to access is Turner Construction. They're a global company, but they have a very strong local presence, and they publish on a quarterly basis escalation amount. So escalation is really just inflationary costs on labor and material and delivery construction. And we take that and we look at a long range average, first of all. Generally a 10-year window is a good predictor of what will happen over the course of a project that lasts multiple years. But we are in unusual circumstances and we have increased that based on more recent projections. For point of reference, for the past 10 years, excluding the past year and a half, escalation has gone up and down, but averaged at a very steady rate of 4% per year. So a yard of concrete costs 4% more every year, just as an example. The past year is this year alone is projected to be 12% escalation. So that's not something that's sustainable. We know that. But the question is, how far will that go out? When does that turn around? So over the course of this project, we're projecting in the 20% escalation. There's a range depending on which parts of the project will happen when, but very significant escalation. So we balance what we think is a conservative approach with what's a practical approach, because when we're talking about a 20% escalation, that's a significant part of the project. And we want to be careful not to add too much, but also give ourselves a reasonable target for what we think things will cost 3 years from now. So that was a very long-winded answer, but we put an awful lot of effort into this estimate.
Thank you. And I'll just, for the record, Theo, we have a 10% construction contingency. We have a 5% design contingency, 21.3% escalation contingency, and a 15% administrative contingency.
Can you say the second number again? After
Design, 5%.
5%. Thanks.
So the design contingency is to include all those bits and pieces that in concept are required to complete the project that we just haven't identified yet as part of the detailed scope of the design.
What are the administrative assumptions for that 15%? What are them?
So we generally refer to that as project costs. So those are typically the non-brick and mortar expenses. So all of the things that need to happen to facilitate a project that don't necessarily translate directly into something that's built. So that would be professional fees. It's probably one of the biggest components of that. Architects, engineers, surveyors, special inspections, insurances, any direct costs the district incurs related to the construction. So if there are specific things that need to happen related to logistics or phasing, that may accrue in that category as well. So it's all of the things that need to happen that aren't directly resulting in building.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I think I'm going to ask about the third part of this moving thing, which is finance. And particularly as we are talking about financing, we are talking about assumptions both in terms of short-term borrowing and thereafter long-term borrowing in certain interest rates that may apply to bands and may apply to long-term bonds. And with inflation and what's been happening with the Fed raising rates over time, I think the public will be interested to know, and the board will be interested to know how you all, Denise, and you all over there, see that and how those potential concerns are incorporated into the proposal.
Sure.
And so.
Yeah, I could certainly address that. Yeah, that's a great question.
And I guess just for everybody, since we haven't been introduced.
Yeah.
As well.
Rick Yancey, Capital Markets Advisors, we're the financial advisor for the district. Denise and I have been working on this project for 2 years now, identifying long-term strategy for the district, and we identified this sort of drop in your local share or your debt service in the 24 years. So that's sort of what precipitated, I guess, this project to start to be thought about to make sure that the debt does come on in the proper time. Your question about interest rates is certainly a timeful in the sense that last year we were in a market where it was historically low interest rates. 1 year bond anticipation notes, which are typically used by districts to fund projects during construction, were below 25 basis points or 0.25%. Beginning in January of this year, is steadily started to increase to a level of, 2.5%, 3% at certain times. As well as long-term bonds, being somewhere in the high point, 3.5% range. We did build in a conservative assumption on interest rates in this model. We use bond anticipation notes at 3%.
3.5.
3.5%, I'm sorry, and then 4.5% on the bonds. So while we haven't gotten to that point yet, we thought it was appropriate to make sure that we did build in a conservative estimates on both bond anticipation notes and long-term bonds. We haven't seen long-term bonds come anywhere near 4.5%, but I think it was right in this environment to make sure that we have that built in. The other side of that is the state aid is paid on the project. That's also a function of interest rates. So there's a sort of natural hedge in the sense that as the interest rates go up on capital project borrowing, the rate that the state uses to reimburse for projects, they use what a term called assumed amortization. They basically amortize the amount of state aid over that 15-year period for renovation projects. And that's tied to the then current interest rates in the market. So as interest rates in theory go up, the amount that's reimbursed by state aid also goes up with that. So there is that natural cover in the sense that you have that ability to increase your building aid if rates do increase. The good news is the last couple of weeks, and we follow the market, quite closely. Rates have started to come down over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot more activity in the municipal bond market, which money is starting to flow into the municipal fund accounts, but we're certainly not by any means out of the woods yet. So we'll continue to follow that. But we also have to think about, while this project is going to be voted on in December, it's still almost 2 years before we start borrowing on the project. So there's still a long fuse, if you will, between where we are in the market now and when we actually start putting shovels in the ground and look to borrow for this project.
Well, I think that's very helpful and reassuring and important for the public to understand who are looking at headlines where it says inflation is at 8%. Oh my God, you're going to do this when it's 8%. Part of it is municipal borrowing is at a lower rate as long as you described. And with bans, I think you indicated the first borrowing probably would not occur until sometime around when we are letting contracts after we've got SCP approval of the plans, and then we're borrowing through bans. I think Denise, you can speak to this. So if you can, borrowing with bans until some point down the road when at the most favorable time in the next 5 years after the ban starts, just the 5-year bans, we then are able to say, let's retire the bans, borrow in the markets, and when rates are low. So that's kind of
yes, and that's how we have it set up, where we take advantage. So to your point, under local finance law, a district could borrow for bond anticipation notes or short-term notes for up to a 5-year period. So the thought process is, keep those short-term costs on bans during construction, at least in short-term instruments to take advantage of the lower interest rates. And then to your point is, if we have 3-4 years down the road from now, interest rates start to come down, that's a perfect opportunity to start, locking in either all of it or a portion of it over time. And that's typically what districts would do, is continue to follow the market. Obviously, you don't want to lock in at the highest point in the market, but it's certainly a strategy that most districts have used throughout the state.
Also, if you could just briefly, because I don't want to get too much into this, but just for the public, because this is a big project, it's the biggest project that has ever been proposed in this district. Explain how, in your experience, Denise, in your experience, review of our record, how we have worked over time to lessen the debt service through both the combination of bans followed by bonds and by refinancing when interest rates go down.
Absolutely.
Because I know you've been involved in that, Dan, you've been involved in that,
For sure.
and I think the public should understand that.
So prior to the 2016 vote, which was the most recent one, the district prior 3 votes, I think were 2000, 2012 and 14, I believe.
Well, there was a 2000 vote,
Yeah,
there was a 2004 vote to borrow an additional 3.2
Exactly.
million to complete the projects because of the delays due to litigation. And there was 2000, as you said, 12 and 16.
so prior to the 2016 vote, the district has already paid off all of those projects by way of debt service. There still is building aid being received on those projects, and in fact, the 2000 project has the last building aid payment in the 24-25 fiscal year. So that's sort of the story with, the drop off in your local shares, that you have no debt on the 2000 project. You have building aid on that project still coming through because it was over a 20-year period. While you rightly so have paid off your debt, quicker than the 20-year term. The 2016 transaction was structured in a very unique way where it took advantage of a drop off because of that disconnect between the 2000 bond issue and others to actually front load some of that debt from the 2016 structure. So as that starts to roll off as well, you're going to be in a perfect position to have most of your debt paid off on the 16 project and all prior projects, sort of in the middle of the cycle of when this project starts to come out. So perfect position the district, looking down the road to make sure that you're in a great position as you are now. And here we are thinking about a 2024, putting on new debt to take advantage of that.
I was referring to one other thing, which I know we would do, and we have done in other bonds, that we would allow for prepayment, so that if we end up having to borrow and at 4.5%, we're not going to be locked in. And so if market rates or bond rates go down, we can basically redeem those and then borrow at 2.5%, which during the life of the bonding will save taxpayers.
So great question. So issuance of municipal bonds typically are unlike your regular mortgage where you could really prepay at any time. Municipal bonds that are financing municipal projects in schools are typically done with what's an 8-year call option, which means that in that 8-year period you can't refund those obligations during that period. But when the 8-year redemption provision kicks in, to Neil's point, is that if you have lower interest rates 8 years from now than you are experiencing in this market, you have the ability to refinance those at then current market rates, which obviously you take advantage of refinancing that debt to lower your debt service on those obligations. So it's certainly something that we work with districts throughout the state on, and Croton Harmon obviously has done that over the years as well.
And is that something which can be changed? In other words, could we say when we sell a bond, okay, we want to have a 5-year call provision, not an 8-year, which is, as you said, typical?
Sure.
And how does that affect the saleability of the bonds?
Yeah, in New York, the standard market, had been 10-year call. We kind of worked our way down to like a 8-year call is the traditional standard in the market. You could certainly do a 5-year call, legally, but it becomes an issue of price. So you really have to pay, not get involved in technical, bond math, but you're paying for that right to have that call provision 3 years earlier.
Okay.
It's like owning an premium.
Exactly. So it's the risk of if the market isn't in your favor in year 5 and 6, you paid for some option that you really can't exercise. And it's tough to get that back. And then you come into the marketability. Most issuers or most buyers of municipal bonds in New York are used to that 8-year call. And when you shift from that, you obviously have issues with investors on why you're shifting to 5. But it becomes a cost issue. How much is it to cost to get that 5-year option as opposed to 8 or 10 years?
Thank you.
How How does the size of this issuance compare to other municipalities or districts in yours?
It varies. We worked, Dan and I both worked with Katona, who just voted a couple days ago. They voted on a $49 million project just on Tuesday, and they got a 61% successful vote. So there's that. There's White Plains, we both worked with as well, voted on a $70+ million project last year. So it really varies throughout the state. The important part is your aid ratio, right? So we have many clients that are at 98%, so 98 cents of every dollar is paid for by state aid. Your district is, 43, 44%. So that changes the math behind how much you could do, as well as how much you have as far as debt falling off. But there's a lot of districts in Westchester have done sizable projects. Pelham, we just worked with, they just finished a pretty sizable, 50, 60 million. Scarsdale just coming off of a $66 million project. So it really varies, I think, across the board.
Yeah, I was asking because in my experience, the larger the issuance, the more flexibility you have with pricing. It sounds like the offering, what we're trying to raise is within.
Yeah,
like a norm.
I mean, we represent probably, I don't know, 180 schools throughout the state. Some do projects for 5, 10 million, some do for, a couple hundred million. So it really depends. To your question about marketability of the bonds, what really drives the marketability is your credit rating. You're fortunate to have a pretty strong credit rating by Moody's, which is the largest rating agency. That really is what investors focus on. Not so much is it 10 million, is it 20, is it 30, but am I going to have a strong backing of the general obligation of the district, and that comes through the good finances of the district and your team to make sure that your credit rating is as strong as possible, so that when you do sell your bonds in the market, that you're well received because of the rating.
Thank you.
I guess, so, well, is the bond interest rate 4% or 4.5%?
4. It's 3.5 for the band. I'm sorry, 3.5 for the
For
band.
band, 4 for the wash.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah, sorry about that.
4.5. No, it's fine. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Just to,
Oh, I'm sorry, I gave up the, okay, so, we're gonna get to D. So D extends the term and amount of the 2013 capital reserve. So this reserve is expiring in May of 2023. So this gives the district the ability to modify the term and the amount of the reserve. So that would be increased by 5 million.
So Denise, that's really similar to having a capital reserve 2023
Correct.
and creating a new 5-year or 10-year reserve, as we could have done, to just fold in,
Modified, be
fold it
moved
into
forward.
the. Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. Just a couple of quick items. First, the 2-page project overview created by KG&D will be available on our website tomorrow, assuming that the board votes to approve the project shortly. I did also want to mention, I pushed hard for the terrazzo and the resiliency wood for my office, but the facilities team did not warm to the idea. I did want to mention a couple of new informational resources that will be also distributed tomorrow. The beginning of what will be a regularly updated frequently asked questions document that's about 4 pages long now will be available on the website, as well as a future facilities project poster, which we hope to be able to display throughout the village and the community, as well as another superintendent's video update pending some final wonderful work by Greg, could be available as soon as tomorrow. And as always, we encourage folks to stay apprised of all of our communications, including those on the project, by checking out the website linked there. And finally, I just want to say again to the community that pending the board's approval of this project in the next minute or so, we ask you to mark your calendars for December 13th. And thank you for your consideration of this project for the Tigers of today and tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any further questions before I read up the next resolution? All right, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the following notice of special district meeting and the related bond resolution as presented.
So moved.
You don't want to read it all out.
No.
Okay.
Are you second? Okay, thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you, Anna. On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining us this evening to
Thank you.
discuss the project. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Very exciting.
Yes. And now we will move into the second portion of our work session this evening, and that is our strategic planning presentation. So I will turn it back over to Superintendent Walker.
Thank you again, Sarah. I want to start by saying that in my opinion, a strategic plan is an organization's way of communicating its values to the public. It's an opportunity to work collaboratively to lay out an optimistic, and some would say audacious, vision for the next work of the system. And in our case, the work that members of the strategic plan and that team will share tonight is built on a foundation laid by the work done by so many in our schools over the past few years and based on pillars of excellence in teaching and learning and in equity in how we approach our work and our engagement with each other. The most effective strategic plans that I've seen in action share a couple of characteristics, including that they envision a future which is big enough to allow all members of the school district to feel a part of and to see themselves and their work contributing to in a significant way. The most effective strategic plans also, in my opinion, go beyond the concept of planning and spark strategic thinking among the members of the school district. What new idea will we consider? What new pursuit will we take on? What previously unchallenged boundary will we seek to scale in order to be a part of living the vision laid out in the strategic plan? When a strategic plan becomes part of the DNA of the system, it sparks that kind of thinking in the team. And our planning team's amazing and thoughtful facilitator, Judy Wilson, told us during our first day together as a team that after our 2 days together were over, we would look at each other and feel great about what we had accomplished. And she would look back at us and say, this is all great, but you're just getting started. And unsurprisingly, Judy turned out to be right. What the team will share tonight is the product of focused and visionary work, but it isn't the end of anything. Instead, it should help to define our next conversations, our next opportunities, and our next steps on our journey together. And so in thinking of the adage that you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been, I wanted to begin tonight by asking John to share some thoughts about the strategic plan from 2017 to 22 and the effect that that has had on our system.
Thanks so much, Steve. We thought a very appropriate place to start off is by publicly offering some gratitude. And that gratitude is deserved to Dr. Furman and to Dr. O'Connell and to the entire district team back in 2017 that formulated that strategic plan. And that is because that plan has brought our district to this incredible moment in time. The 2017 plan, as you can see on the screen, encapsulated by the profile of the graduate, went far in terms of reframing our work as educators. Because those 6 identified skills that you see on the screen transcended both subject area and grade level, it cemented a professional practice of true collaboration. From shared definitions to common rubrics, it began reframing our work as educators by bringing us to understand that success in school and success in life is not what it used to be, which means we needed to develop new ways of thinking about our practice. As we look forward from this point in time to the future, we need to ensure that this profile remains both current and aspirational as our work evolves and our students' needs and interests change. So, the lens we use to prepare this new strategic plan, as you may know, is future focused. Work on the profile of graduate brought us to this current position in time, a place where our professional culture is positive. Our professional culture is aspirational, and we are ready to roll up our sleeves to consider what we need to do to best prepare students for their future. And we also realize that there is an urgency to this work that The work cannot be done through incremental change. Incremental change is a slow process. Incremental change slightly modifies a current landscape. We want systemic energy. Systemic energy seeks a greatly improved version of what currently exists through bold transformation that may lead to something fundamentally different from what is currently in place. And where this might sound like a valiant undertaking, we must not forget the context of our present time. That context is being on the heels of a global pandemic. The disruptions that we experienced over the past few years, there are too many to name, but it also taught us much about ourselves. The lockdown necessitated rapid change and adaptation, and we did it. Never was the teaching of a whole child more vital, and our long dedication to social emotional learning was there to support us. The scale to which online learning was deployed was unprecedented, and we had the capacity to handle this and assure the continuity of our academic program. We have proven that we are capable of greatness and that we are ready now for the aspirational work that is outlined in this plan.
Thank you, John. I love hearing John speak. So as we began our time together as a strategic planning team in the same room at the same time near the end of August, we made a series of fundamental agreements about how we wanted to approach the work. And the one that I wanted to highlight for just a moment was this concept of that strategic planning shouldn't be the proverbial creation of a document that goes into a binder and sits on a shelf, right? That for this to be the kind of impactful opportunity for our system that we want it to be, and that we aspire for it to be, our goal from the beginning was to ensure that the work could be seen as meaningful by everyone in the system, that it was of a scope that was broad enough and all-encompassing enough that every member of our system, regardless of title, regardless of scope of work, could see themselves in it, and that it was fundamentally part of a living plan, and one that is positioned to respond over the course of time to what we inherently know is change is inherently unpredictable. Change is inherently at times chaotic, and for our plan to be as effective as it can be, we need to make sure that we have the kind of structures in place that are responsive to that moment. And I wanted to take a moment to thank and recognize everyone who's contributed their thoughts and their vision to this work. Perhaps the most important part of this or any process is making sure you have the right people in the room to have these conversations and to make these decisions. And I have no doubt that as our community looks at these names, they'll feel as I do that we have the right people in the room. And so I thank every single member of this team, including, of course, all of those who are in the room with us tonight. And it's my pleasure to introduce a member of the strategic planning team for some introductory comments. Also a parent, of course, in our district, Cristiano Paz. Cristiano?
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. My name is Cristian Opaso, and I am a parent and a community member. I have 2 kids in the high school. And I'm here to basically introduce the work that we have done in the last couple of weeks, couple of months, with the strategic planning team. This has been a unique effort. And why am I able to say that? Because I can prove it, right? This document I have here says Technology Task Force minutes of March 1st, 2007. I was part of an effort of the same nature 15 years ago. The people at the top of the list include, of course, Superintendent Castro, and all of the principals of all the schools, all of the teachers. I happen to be the last man standing of this. I opportunity Gosh, as well, we did a presentation just like this. Okay. So the members of the task force, and I can share this document. I did some archaeology in my email earlier this morning. If you read this document, it's very much like the issues that we have been discussing with our team right now. Of course, there are two fundamental differences. Number one, this effort, which was fantastic, it lasted for 2 years. And it was greatly beneficial, I believe, for the district. Many things that we planned, we saw happening later on. But the effort that we are embarked right now has two fundamental differences. Number one, in this effort, there were no students as part of the team. And now we have Molly, we have Hannah. Do we have Nicole? Three students which have been very foundational in what we have been discussing. Everything that we discuss here, the ultimate beneficiaries are the students. So not having students, it would be a movement in the wrong direction. And also, this effort, as beneficial as it was for the task members and the districts as a whole, didn't particularly have short-term goals as we do. And what you're about to see today are some of those goals that we have already achieved. Of course, nothing is written in stone. As Steve said, this is a continuous project of improvement. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be part of this team and to have the rest of the members describe it in detail right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to speak a little bit about the process, preliminary and foundational work, PVC principal, Michael Plotkin.
So first off, I just want to say that months ago, Steve and John were wise enough and gracious enough to welcome the input and involvement of building level leaders into the process. And one of the first things that was done is selecting and identifying a consultant. You see, we want to recognize Judy Wilson, but I just want to tell you about my observations of Judy Wilson for the viewers at home who haven't met her. Judy, you know, obviously when you don't know someone, you don't know them, but it very quickly in our first meeting and second meeting with her, you can tell she's organized, thoughtful, experienced, and I think that played out during the whole process thus far. More importantly, what I think Judy really gets is how each of us feels that we're stewards of this community. And obviously she supports us in that, developing a plan that would help us take that stewardship to the next level. Through numerous meetings, Judy was able to understand our district, the schools that make up the district, the culture, and of course, our collective aspirations. At the preliminary meetings, we, made surveys, and really, she worked with us to really get a nuanced sense of who we were going to survey and what those surveys would ask. And I'll just give you one example. My building had one survey that was 6th through 8th and another that was 5th grade, because based on her experience, she thought that would be better to change questions and do that work so that we would get the most accurate input going into this process and the perspectives of various stakeholders. And that's what the surveys basically did. We also decided on dates of distribution, as well as the messaging that would accompany those surveys. And again, I thought it was really skillful of her to, give us feedback in the questions we would ask and who we were going to ask those questions of. Judy also worked with us to create this team that you saw up there, and we're very happy with that team because it really represents not only a wide variety of stakeholders, but as Christiane said, students, people who are really close to the things that we care most about. Go to the next slide, please. So we just want to talk a little bit about the process and the foundational work that's that we started with. At our first meetings with Judy, and this is the larger team now, not just Steve, Laura, and myself, and John, and Judy. Our team, at our meeting with the overall team, Judy and Steve were able to underscore the importance of the process. Let me say that again, the importance of the process. That this process would bring us to a place that we wanted to go, to discover together what we wanted to know about the future, as well as explain how the process would lead us to a plan that would serve as a blueprint for a future-driven school district. We examined relevant data together and the survey responses, and the room took on rather, I have to say, a carnival feeling at some points, which was really enjoyable because you could feel the energy, and that energy helped propel our work. Judy also took time to prepare opportunities for us as a group to learn and grow together and kind of gel. And that resulted in a very strong sense of purpose. We're talking about the future of our school district, a future that will touch many, many innumerable lives. Judy provided ample readings and thinking activities that helped our team get ready to do our best thinking, to envision what a future-driven school system really means and does.
Thank you very much, Michael. And now to speak to the process that the team went through in terms of identifying some priorities, Director of Technology and Innovation, Dr. Jared Blair, and CET Principal, Carrie Bianchi.
Thank you very much. I want to start by saying what an honor it was to be part of the team and the unique process that captured all of our voices and ideas. When we met for our 2 days in September, the strategic planning team continued its journey by taking the preliminary work and that foundational work that Michael talked about, and we turned that into taking our imagination and our goal, our ideas and vision, and developing it into priorities and goals. So part of that process was to examine what the team identified as potential priorities. Everybody had the opportunity, whether it was an activity on an index card or on a Post-it note or on large Post-it paper that was displayed all throughout the room, to capture what they felt our students needed, deserved. What did our community need and deserve? And how were we going to take those ideas and prioritize them? So it really was a magical process where we almost weren't sure what it was going to turn into until we were supposed to. It was definitely, as Judy put it, you'll understand when you are supposed to. And so we walked in the room on the second day, and all the work that we had done on the first day was displayed around the room on Post-it notes, where we captured what we wanted and what we hoped for and our vision for our students, our schools, and our community. We examined them. We asked each other questions. We had group discussions. We broke up into different groups and had further discussion. And then we were tasked with prioritizing those ideas and those visions. And it was very funny because Judy handed us each a strip of paper that had 4 little dots on it. And she said, use your dots wisely, because from everything that you have displayed around the room, you now need to prioritize what you feel as an individual should be the focus and goal for the strategic plan. And that was quite a challenge because there was so much amazing information displayed around the room. So we all went through the exercise of prioritizing with stickers. After that, it really emerged into this amazing discussion about looking for trends, commonalities, and themes. We took those commonalities and themes and were able to group a couple things together, put like ideas together. And after that, we really narrowed it down to what we felt were the goals for our strategic coherence plan. And we then broke into smaller groups where we were tasked with drafting vision statements for those goals and looking at what a visual would be for the portrait of a learner. And by the end of that second day, we had these amazing visuals or drafts that we could share with all of our colleagues that helped to capture everybody's thoughts, everybody's vision. And there was a lot, the consensus through that whole process in the end was overwhelmingly standard across all of us. So it really was a fascinating experience to take all these ideas and thoughts and see how the themes came together into these priorities that have now created our goals for the strategic coherence plan.
I'd also like to echo Michael's sentiments about Dr. Judy Wilson for her stewardship throughout the process. It was during this specific stage of the process, that second day, that our diverse team of stakeholders had produced and distilled an incredible amount of information. My mind was spinning, and I had to be honest, before lunch on that second day, I wasn't really sure where. But again, Judy stayed calm, she stayed poised, and she guided us, and it really came together and synthesized by the end of that second day into our products from our initial work. Carrie mentioned the vision statement. We built upon the current vision statement that we've lived through. So we'll be hearing from another group of individuals about the vision statement. We'll also be presenting to you next the 3 goals that came out of this work, and as well the portrait of the learner. So instead of the profile of the graduate, we'll talk about the portrait of the learner. So at this point, we'd like to introduce Greg and Anamika, and they'll be speaking to you about the vision statement.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for asking us to speak about the strategic planning process. And for those of you at home watching that may not know me, my name is Gregory Cavallari, Technology and Communications Specialist. I've been part of the school community for 11 years, and I'm also a Croton Harmon graduate.
And I'm Anamika Bhatnagar. I'm a Croton resident for 18 years and the parent of 2 students at PVC. I was also honored to be asked to serve on this committee and especially delighted to collaborate with Greg, who's known most of my kids since elementary school.
And I cherish the connection we have with our community, and it's been a wonderful experience teaming up with Anamika. So we had the opportunity to work on the district's vision statement. The changes you see here are reflective of the larger conversation coming out of the contributions of the entire strategic planning process. I must say what an incredible experience this was. The enthusiasm of the room was infectious, and our members included faculty, admin, staff, community members, parents, and elevated student voices. The group's perspective and critical thought process was invaluable in our discussion of the district's vision statement.
So as you all know, the Croton Harmon schools have a concrete vision already, and it's articulated pretty clearly on the screen. Why change it? Well, as the committee took a thoughtful look at what it means to be a future-driven district, we noted that our entire learning community needs to be open to self-examination, to reviewing our current practices and adapting them for changing times and new imperatives. Revisiting the district's vision statement was an integral part of our work. As the group discussed what drives each of us, certain keywords rose to the top: passion, curiosity, inspiration, social emotional well-being. These recurring themes are now better reflected in the new proposed language.
The original vision statement included students only. We wanted to acknowledge that the vision is for our entire learning community, from teachers, staff, administrators, to our students, everyone engaged in the work within our walls and the extended community. We also updated the terminology lifelong learners with enduring curiosity to not only highlight the learning process over time, but to include an inquisitive lens.
As well, the idea of the pursuit of inspiration was added to empower teachers, staff, and students to pursue their passions within our learning community. And finally, we wanted to acknowledge that habits of mind need to be developed not only for their potential to contribute to society, but for their significance to our growth as individuals.
And in closing, these changes, or the revisioning, if you will, informed the Strategic Planning Committee's development of the district's key goals, which you will hear about next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg and Anamika. And now to speak to the team's first developed goal, two outstanding members of the faculty at the high school, Zoha Nadim and Isabella Zappa.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Thank you for having us. So one of our first goals, as you can see, it says the pursuit of passion and exploration. We want to empower ourselves and each other to pursue purposeful, courageous exploration of our interests and passions to enhance learning, personal fulfillment, and community connections. So as teachers, one thing we're always asking for is more time. I wish I had more time. This year, thankfully, we were afforded some time to explore our own passions. As one of the instructional coaches, I have the added pleasure of supporting my colleagues in the pursuit of this thoughtful, risk-taking exploration. Many teachers have already hit the ground running. Some of their passion projects include experimenting with mastery grading, utilizing new technology in the classroom, incorporating more real-world hands-on experience for students, or even simply taking an old lesson and transforming it to be more student-centered. So by highlighting our passions, our hope is that this will translate to our students.
Yeah, and I think I can echo everything that Isabel is saying, that we've been given this unique opportunity to pass our passions to our students, so that our love of learning is translated to our students. They see it in us, they're able to act it out. Once they see that passion in the classrooms, in the buildings, in the facilities, and everything that we're doing. And I think that they're able to see beyond the transcripts, beyond the grades, beyond the numbers, and able to hone in on interpersonal skills that will allow them to be the joyful, passionate leaders of tomorrow. We also had social media in mind, and we're given a unique opportunity to create hashtags. And for the two that we created as a team together, the first one is hashtag pursue purposely, and then the second one is hashtag pursuit of passion. Thank you.
And for the second goal?
Yeah, so the second one I think is even more meaningful. It's something that is groundbreaking. This new term, Reimagine Learning, reimagine the learning experience by identifying and dismantling existing institutional and structural barriers in order to promote curiosity, growth, and innovation. I think that by reimagining learning, we are deliberately choosing to shift the paradigm in order to break these concrete barriers. It's important to know that in education, sometimes we're always told to stop reinventing the wheel. In our case, we are looking to reinvent this wheel because in the future, there are no wagons, there are no wheels. And it's important to know that the education systems that served students hundreds of years ago need to be reimagined to serve the future leaders of tomorrow. Me and myself as a school counselor, it's important to know that my role has also been reimagined. It's by my title. We are no longer called guidance counselors. We are school counselors who have these encompassing roles of being everything in between in a school. So I think it's important to look at these roles and reimagine them in different ways. And lastly, I'd just like to add that, you know, by reinventing and reimagining, we are learning to be uncomfortable, and that is where change happens.
So like she mentioned, change. As we know, the world is ever changing. Our students are also changing. So as educators, it's important that we adapt to those changes so we can help better prepare them for the future, whatever that might be for each student. So some of the barriers that we see might include schedules or different learning spaces. And what else did I have here? Yeah, then. Yes, so again, so by this thoughtful risk-taking, we're going to encourage and try to break out of that comfort zone to better support our students.
Isabella mentioned a little bit about scheduling, so I wanted to highlight the existing institutional and structural barriers piece of this goal. So these are things like Isabella mentioned, like schedules, for example, like a high school schedule that is very much designed in a way that is purposely set up to separate subjects into separate spaces. So a typical Bell schedule today looks very much like it did decades ago. So as we're working on strategic planning, this goal is very important because we have to be thinking about dismantling the physical barriers like schedules and even walls in some cases, as you see in our future facilities planning, that really get in the way of innovation and creating the kinds of interdisciplinary student-centered classes and experiences that we want. As part of our strategic planning, we have to be willing to not just assume that our current schedules and course structures are good enough, and we have to be willing to do more than make minor risk-averse tweaks to these institutional and structural barriers. They're comfortable for many of us who went to school in these structures and have taught in these structures. But we know that these kinds of barriers and schedules, they're just one example of an essential part of our work.
And from the district perspective, I just wanted to offer another example of existing institutional structures. It may have been very commonplace for me to start my role last year with a technology committee. But I didn't do that because I no longer believe that technology should be the sole focus of the conversation. So that's why we now have the innovation team, which drives a think tank style process around ideas that members of our community and of the team bring to the team. We had our first meeting of the year this year today, and we took an issue of innovation and we kind of generated a bunch of ideas around that. And the individual who brought that issue to us left with that. So we're breaking down, again, those institutional structures that have been commonplace for so long and re-envisioning them for productivity.
Thank you. Good. And now to speak to the strategic planning team's third generated goal, Michael and Nicole from BBC. You stay ready.
So I think everyone would agree, the team definitely, I think we'd all agree that the culture of well-being will really struck a chord with everyone. I think it's definitely something that everyone agreed upon. The other two goals would be impossible to achieve and to work towards without this one being foundationally sound. So we know we all benefit from a supportive environment, not just our students, but staff and the community. And so we simply cannot be future focused if we're not taking care of one another and taking care of ourselves. And like Steve said earlier, right, it's the DNA of our school community, and that culture is key to us being able to move forward, I think, and really be future focused. So we talked earlier about teaching the whole child, and that being the center of our work. And I think this is really an extension of that, right? Being that culture of well-being for all of us.
The group that we worked with felt very adamant about this goal. It came up in many different parts of the work over the course of 2 days. Some of the work that Carrie described in her slides. And the thing I would like to leave us with is, when we look to the future, what is the platform in which we look to the future? And that is the connection to a Croton tradition. And that is, we have always been concerned about our well-being, about social emotional learning and so forth. So this is built on a really firm foundation. And that Croton, tradition is a response to the present and the past and the things we've been through and a preparation for the future. As John said, the pandemic taught us some things. And what it taught us was social emotional learning and considering the well-being of our organization and the individuals that make it up cannot be a secondary thought, must be a primary one. Every future must be built on the positive practices of the past, traditions that transcend time, and the values that persist throughout ages. And this is one of those values. With this goal, our future as a school district is set upon a familiar foundation and a tried and true practices that can remain part of our culture, student and teacher experiences, and can be strengthened strategically and aligned with the other goals beautifully. This goal prioritizes well-being and formalizes it to be part of an essential feature and an engine of change and productivity.
Thank you, team. Additionally, the strategic planning team over the course of that time spent time discussing and thinking through our current profile of a graduate and the potential benefits of shifting that paradigm to consider the portrait of a learner. And so to discuss further that work, I'm pleased to introduce two members of the class of 2023 from the high school, Molly Levitt and Hannah Reynes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight to speak. I'm going to talk about the more general overview of the evolution, and then Molly will go into more specific. So as you can see, we have shifted from the profile of a graduate to this portrait of a learner. And I think just that shift is a very significant idea because it's saying that learning is not static. It's something that we don't graduate and we know everything, we're going out into the world, but it's something that happens throughout our time at the high school and then after we graduate, and that's really important for us to understand as a district. We also have to learn that it's a journey. We learn, we relearn, we add more information, and it's a lifelong journey. And we also wanted to add staff and teachers, everybody who works in the building to this mission, because we are learning along with them and they are learning with us. And that's how we have this learning community, that it's not just students absorbing information, teachers giving it to us, but that it's a two-way street. And I know for myself that when I see teachers exploring in the classroom, it gives this excitement and curiosity to the learning process. And that's when that lifelong journey really happens. So that's very exciting. And then I'm going to hand it over to Molly to talk about the specifics of the portrait.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so basically, I'm going to be talking about so what exactly is changing? What exactly are we doing? We're not ditching every single part of the profile of a graduate. We're just. I mean, I think we are ditching like the big head part, but. So basically, it's going to be 5 or 6 main words and phrases, and then a new part is going to be about 2, maybe 3 supplementary words or phrases within the larger categories. And these categories, instead of right now, we have the profile of a graduate. What it says is successful people will. And instead of doing that, the new profile of a learner is going to just describe the attributes that are good to have. That's just for more flexibility. And it's not saying to be successful, you do X, Y, Z. It's saying these are attributes that you should try to continue to develop. It's not just about the end goal. I'm also going to highlight a couple of new points, specifically some new words. We are right now, critical thinking and problem solving are combined into one section of the profile of a graduate. We decided that it would be best to separate them because we believe that on their own they're both very important and they should have the proper amount of space for that. Critical thinking, we also want to expand it to include both empathy and analysis. You can't just have one or the other. You can't just have stone cold facts and figures, and you can't just have emotion. There has to be a balance of the two. And we also wanted critical thinking to be its own category as a reminder that critical thinking exists not just in school, but beyond. It's something that now more than ever is very important for people a very important skill for people to have. We also, like I said, we put problem solving as its own point because that is separate. That includes so many things, including collaboration and just being able to adapt and grow. So we believe that deserves its own category. We also are adding resilience instead of just flexibility and adaptability. So it's not just about being able to change based on what's happening. It's also about stick-to-itiveness and strength, which is just important. That has to go hand in hand with flexibility, and it can't just be one or the other. We have also decided to add on. Responsibility, and that will encompass so many things. It includes social influence, so the influence that we have on each other, advocacy for causes we care about, personal responsibility, and ethics and decision making. And finally, we are expanding innovation to be creativity as a whole. Innovation has a pretty specific connotation, but creativity just encompasses so much more. And we didn't want it to just be producing things and inventing things. We wanted it to be something that creativity shouldn't just be in boxes. Creativity should be infused into everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly and Hannah, for embodying why this work is so important and so articulately describing it. Additionally, this was a very busy team over the course of this couple of days. The team also spent some time thinking through and defining what our values are as a future-driven school system. And to share more about that, Dr. Laura Dubeck.
I think this piece of our work really brings each of the pieces of the plan that you just heard about together. And as said, it's really about our overall values and what that term future driven means to us at this stage. So the team identified these 7 bullets that we think encapsulates our beliefs and values and summarizes the goals and intention behind the revisions to our portrait of the learner. And it also ties back to our district's aspirational questions that we're exploring. So the development and use of growth-oriented and transformational learning experiences, opportunities for people, which, as we've heard, includes staff and students, to discover and explore passions, risk-taking, the well-being of all, equity, collaboration, dismantling barriers to learning, and being focused on the possibilities of what the future holds for all members of our community. I think this set of statements is really about who we are as a district and what we value overall. The experiences we have had recently, such as with Learning 2025, are helping us expand our horizon and stay focused and develop this future-driven work. And as we have heard about passion projects and pilot projects that we are working on throughout the district in different ways and in different pockets, these are the places where we see the future-driven set of values already coming to life at this early stage of the process. And I think that kind of segues really well into our next slide.
Perfect. And yeah, thank you for that segue, Laura. And as we know, a plan and a vision is only as important as the activity and the thought that it spurs and sparks among all of us who are doing the work. And so to speak to that concept of living the vision, 3 outstanding members of the PVC faculty, Jenny Signo, Mark Malloy, and Katie Ernow.
Everyone. So the guiding questions were presented to us on day 1 by Steve Walker, and they were: how will Croton Harmon Schools develop into a future-driven school system? How will we create opportunities for thoughtful risk-taking by students and educators in the pursuit of joy, interest, and passion in our schools? How will we promote meaningful connection and engagement with all members of our school community and nurture a supportive environment that actively works through an equity lens? And how will we identify and implement effective approaches to ensure connection and engagement with our school districts, families whose first or primary language is other than English? And I think these questions have really grounded us in our work with passion projects. It's just really exciting to be able to delve into some things that really bring us joy and things that we're passionate about, and to kind of think about these questions as we're just formulating things that, we want to do as like our passion projects. So it's just been so exciting to talk with other colleagues about different passion projects. And I think one theme that I've really seen stand out just in talking informally with colleagues is this idea of connection. Just connection to each other, connections with students, connections through different disciplines, connections to the community, and maybe bringing the community in or going on field trips and, taking students out on outdoor excursions. So this like theme of connection that really was spurred, I think, from a lack of connection during such a turmoil time with, during the pandemic. So it was just really nice to like bring back those connections in very different ways.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to meet during one of our Wednesday faculty meetings and go across grades and to hear some of the other ideas that teachers had. I know there was a science teacher who wants to do hatching of, chicks again or something, animals back to the classroom. One of our phys ed teachers would like to maybe bring some kids on to a ranch, for horseback riding. We're lucky because Jenny and I both work in 6th grade, so we sort of have a shared passion, which is, like you were mentioning, Jenny, just getting back outside the classroom, giving the kids the opportunities to extend our learning outside of, traditional means and places. So we're doing a lot of classroom trips, we're planning things like that, and extracurricular opportunities. We're very, very excited about.
I think it just sparked an idea of like, what do we find internally like that brings us joy, and how can we connect that to our curriculum, and like how can students also investigate their own joys and passions, and how can they see the cross-curricular connections as well?
I was just gonna say, like, my passion is honestly future focused learning, and it's Bill Daggett and all the things that when he was speaking, it was like he was reading notes from my head. I mean, this is what I do. I'm in the right place with the right people at the right time, and it's beyond exciting. So when they said some people are an English teachers learning to play stand-up bass, it's going to be amazing to watch it translate into his classroom, because it's going to bring him joy, which brings joy to his classroom. Mine happens to be this. So just meeting with all of you and coming to these meetings and our strategic planning meetings and our going to Washington DC was mind blowing. Just because for me, I got to see my passions play out in lighthouse schools. I couldn't believe that things that I've always dreamt of were happening. And then we came back and we spoke with other people about how we've been doing things like that here. And with our innovation team, we're putting structure, voice, and focus to it. And I'm like ridiculous. I'm super, super happy.
Yeah, it definitely is re-energized. I think faculty, staff, everyone, you could even feel it in with the kids too. Like we're excited, they're excited. We're all excited.
From the student representatives, some things that they said in our college and high school, we just hear the same things across the whole district. You know, that for you, I think one of the girls said that to see their teachers excited and to be engaged themselves and learn new things. I think the kids feel the excitement from us, and that's wonderful.
Thank you.
And just to take what our fine trio there said and to say that we had an innovation team led by Dr. Blair prior to some of this thoughtful work, and just think about how this type of work will not only bring that team to life, but reinvigorate just that team to help it focus on really true innovation and future thinking.
I just wanted to add on to sticking with, Jenny's theme of connection, right? The district guiding questions, I know directly, right, coincide with our strategic coherence plan and all of the work that we were doing there. And for us, I think even at PVC, right, translated right into our goals for the building and our staff and our students. So it really is nice to just see everyone focused on coming together and making this all happen.
I just wanted to make a brief mention that when we think about living the vision, part of, again, what makes an effective vision and an effective plan is how it makes the people who are doing the work feel about the work that they're doing. And having gotten to know the two members of the faculty who wrote those particular statements, those are, I think, remarkable and profound things for people who have been in this work a long time to share. And I think that speaks to the work, the quality of the work that's being done, the vision with which it's being done, and also about the energy that this work is galvanizing in the system.
So when today at the innovation teams meeting, we talked a little bit about how do we know if we're hitting the mark? And we talked about data. But really what we also want to be looking for is evidence of all sorts. And in 7 short weeks of school, I think there's a lot of evidence from people opening their emails and seeing tours being offered by bus drivers who understand this purpose. And that connectedness is really important. Where I have seen some changes is not only in the passion projects, but what teachers are saying about themselves and about the work that they're doing. The level and feeling of optimism, excitement, and enthusiasm. And of course, inspiration. After a long pandemic and uncertainty, for teachers and students and staff to know that they can count on their district administration to support them in this area, I think is very inspirational and exciting. What Jenny said that I think is really important evidence that I didn't know she was going to say tonight is the connectiveness of colleagues who want to work together, who haven't had the opportunities to do that before because the old mindsets, and when I say that, I mean all of us had those mindsets, that the math people don't work with these people and these people don't work with them, that those walls are starting to come down, or at least people are using the doors to get around them. People have a sense of purpose. And then one of the most obvious ones is a change in language, a change in the lexicons in which we're using to describe our work, that we're describing the new concepts and the new reality that we want to be undertaking. And of course, in the middle of that, a very important kernel is risk-taking. Who could talk about the future without talking about taking risks or playing risk? Considering what the future is very important and will basically drive the practices of for teachers and students. We've had the distinct pleasure of just putting things out there to the faculty at meetings and saying, what do you think of when you think of future driven? And the answers that we got back were more than anything that we could have bargained for. And I shared those with you in one of my board weeklies. I was very happy to hear that not only did people think about this, but they really thought about this beyond just themselves. They thought about it in terms of what does it mean for their practice? What does it mean for their students? And what does it mean for our organization? And here's the real thing that makes me feel very proud. Our teachers and our students, they want to be part of a world-class school system. And they see this as the avenue to doing that. So those connections and that excitement are contagions. And they're going to continue to spread. And we already see evidence of it 6 weeks, 7 weeks into school. I can't tell you that I've ever seen 2 goals that I've written have that type of impact in my 15 years here.
Thank you very much, Michael. And along the theme of walls coming down and serendipitous timing, I think that one of, again, the unique opportunities we have is to think not only about the future of the work that we do, but the future of the places, the spaces in which we do that work. And to speak more about the alignment of the strategic plan and the vision with the Future Facilities Project, Laura and Molly.
So, when Molly and I were preparing for tonight, she graciously said that I could talk first about. She might have just wanted me to stop talking about it because she's heard me talk about this so many times. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the innovative learning space at the high school as an example of this this project working in tandem with the strategic plan. So we keep hearing and we know that our schools were built in a very different era in terms of the purpose of schools, teaching practices and philosophy, and most importantly, what we want for our students. This project gives us the opportunity to make meaningful change to those things, those physical barriers that limit our ability to be future focused. In the last year or so, we learned so much about what we desire for teaching and learning, such as our transdisciplinary work. And in a really good way, that was hard. We kept coming up again and again with the same barriers. And we realized that we need to have different spaces and we need to adjust our schedule to prioritize this kind of learning. And it's very difficult to do one without the other. So we're very fortunate to hopefully be able to do both at the same time. And as I talked about earlier, scheduling is one of those barriers that we're committed to working on in the strategic plan. And we heard from Dr. Daggett when he was in our district last week that learning spaces are another big area that we really need to tackle to make the future focus work happen. So hopefully we will be very soon having the opportunity to do that at a large scale. So the Innovative Learning Center at the high school, up there in the top right, is literally going to be a space that is purposely designed around our vision for interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary learning. It will be a space, it's hard to picture in a rendering, but it will be a space where walls are flexible and space is configured to a lesson, a day, an hour, a project, a unit, rather than being in a fixed space that looks and feels exactly the same no matter what you are learning. The space becomes a vehicle for the learning rather than fitting the learning into an immobile, unchanging space. This innovative space is particularly exciting because I think it will be the first of hopefully many spaces that are intentionally designed from the walls up to house the kind of learning we need for the future. And it will physically mirror the concept of breaking down barriers. I don't think many of us have had the opportunity to actually physically design the space that fits the type of learning we want to create, probably not often, if ever, in our careers. And I could go on and on about the innovative learning space more, but it's only a concept at this point. So I can imagine when it's actually here, but for now, I'll turn it over to Molly to share about some of the other projects that encompass this vision too.
Thank you, Dr. Dubak. So first, I am going to be talking about the revamped CET outdoor learning space, which is in the top left corner. Right now, this is a really nice space. I believe it's between the kindergarten first and second grade wings, and it's really underutilized. And we plan on redoing it, adding those risers that you can see, making it nicer, having a nice garden area. It will make the space be great for things like performances, and by giving kids the opportunity to perform in this renovated space and to learn important skills related to that. It will hopefully help the kids learn actively in spaces that are better designed around their needs. It shouldn't just be that space is there. It should be that the spaces are working to give the kids the educational experiences they need. And hopefully it will also give teachers more flexibility in how they can teach along the lines of the reimagining learning that we've been talking about. And also it does tie in with the well-being of the kids. Kids should be spending as much time outside as possible. So this is a perfect opportunity to just get kids outside more, something that otherwise they'd be doing indoors. I'm gonna move on to talk about the music suite in the high school, just a couple doors down. We are planning some great renovations to this space. As someone who's in there quite a bit, it's going to be super helpful. We are getting rid of the risers, which make the space more cluttered and difficult to navigate. And we're adding these soundproof practice areas where students can practice their voice, their instruments, and just sort of modernizing, updating the space. Again, this renovation is just going to be better designed for the needs of the students, and it will promote curiosity and growth. It will give students the room to grow. Right now, if you've been there, you'll like have someone playing piano in the corner, and then like someone singing in another corner, and someone practicing in the guitar in another corner. It's kind of chaotic. So it's just going to facilitate that much better when we have the designated spaces for that. And I think it will just make the space more flexible overall. And finally, what everyone is really excited about, Spencer Field. We are getting turf. It has been so long, I think. We have so many students here who are so passionate about the sports that they play, and they deserve a space that is going to foster their passion and to provide the best foundation for them. We have so much athletic talent here, and we should nurture it to the best of our ability. And it will also hopefully help in further building connections between the schools and the community. Since, I mean, events like homecoming have already been so great for school spirit and bringing us together. And it will just make people more excited to be a part of this district, seeing this field that is brand new, seeing all the effort and the time and money that has been put into making this just a better space. I think it will really just lift people's spirits, and the facilities will also be open for community members and local organizations to use. So I know when you're looking at everything like the strategic planning, the goals and the mission, the vision, this is it playing out. Like this is how it's actually happening and how it's playing out. This is how it applies to us. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
I'll remaining to ask you to miss some classes the next couple of weeks. Projects in the community. All right. Thank you so much to Dr. Dubek and to Myers for that articulate expression of how the vision will play out in our facilities, and to offer some closing comments. Once again, Hannah.
Thank you. So I would really first love to echo the idea that Mr. Signo mentioned of connection. I think that's something that I'd already written out in my remarks, but that really connects that one word together. What's exciting for me about the discussions that we've had the past few days was about making connections across disciplines and then making connections in and outside of the classroom. So both of those things together, of pairing everything together, making it very cohesive. And I think that the three goals we have, the new vision, really aligns with that. And I feel very lucky to live in a school district that wants to make that investment in the future and to take these risks. It's not always easy to make these connections, but it needs to be done so that people have a core value system, that learning is bigger than our own grades, our own personal idea of what success is, but that it's about a much bigger idea. It's about the bigger picture of being part of the school community, part of a larger local community, and part of a larger global community. And it's also about that idea of curiosity, the joy of learning, and the journey. And I could definitely really feel those values when we're in that meeting, discussing those ideas, thinking about what we want in the future, that excitement was very powerful.
And I know that excitement is infused in these goals, and I'm really excited to see how that goes forward and how we nurture that curiosity and that joy of learning in the future. Thank you.
It's a tough act to follow. Let me just say briefly that one of the themes that I think the team has heard this evening is the concept of planning begets thinking, begets action. And so one of the items that Dr. Wilson asked us to think about as we ended our time together was this concept of the Back to the Future protocol. And I appreciate Greg finding an image of the DeLorean he was there. Well done. And so part of this thinking is we envision ourselves 5 years from now, 6 years from now, and look back at really impactful and successful work that we've been a part of as a system and ask ourselves, how is it that we were successful in this work? What did we do? What did we learn? What shifts did we make? What did we change or abandon? And the team's done a phenomenal job kind of in its early stages of beginning to think about actions that are aligned to the broader vision that the team has been expressing this evening. And we wanted to lift just a couple of those to make sure that the board and the community had a chance to see some of the early thinking of the team, including that concept of continuing to incorporate individual choice, inquiry, passion, agency. And so the concept of potentially transforming capstone projects into passion projects for all students, continuing to use it to take greater advantage of the beautiful surroundings that we have here in the Croton community to enhance not only well-being, but learning outdoors, recreationally and instructionally. And as we've heard a bit about tonight, confronting the barrier of some of the tried and true schedules that we've all experienced in schools for so many generations, and looking at how we can push at and scale those boundaries to find opportunities for true interdisciplinary learning and exploration. And to conclude our presentation this evening, to talk a little bit about what's next for this team and the work. John.
Steve, I'm gonna be honest with you about something.
Yeah, we appreciate that, sir.
I'm gonna try something new right now. Feeling very emotional. And I don't know if it's just me, but listening to the passion of our students, our teachers, administrators, our school counselor, our parents, really makes me realize how unique a moment this is. Not only in time for our district, but indeed that we as a district are in an incredibly fortunate and unique place. And I think it's self-evident, but I also think that it's truly reflected in the excitement that you hear when we're talking about the future right now. You know, the important thing to note is that this plan isn't even fully formulated yet. It still has, we still have now a vibrant process ahead of us. So I just want to, let the board and the community know that from here, we're going to continue to roll up our sleeves. There's a lot of work to be done. We're going to next be forming committees, co-chairs and members will form committees for each of the individual goals. That the charge will be to develop action plans that will encompass the first 18 months of work for each of those goals. And we would like to have those action plans ready to be reviewed by the board and the district by February 1st in time for some budget alignment. We'll also continue to reflect upon and refine the important language that concisely articulates our vision and our goal statements. You heard a lot, Molly talked a lot about the details of the profile of the learner. We want to make sure that that's represented in a new graphic format and that its use becomes ubiquitous in our hiring practices, on our lesson design, facility planning, student self-reflection, and more. And of course, throughout this process, the thought of how important it will be to communicate this transformational work, and what a pleasure that will be. And I think that communication, you'll see that communication go ongoing for many years, because This plan is intended to be perpetuated and embedded in everything we do. Steve said at the beginning, the risk of a lengthy plan with many incremental goals is that they can easily be left in that binder on the shelf or files on a computer. And this team here believes that the plan we're proposing is flexible, is aspirational, and will truly inspire our community to build a better education system for all of our students. And we cannot wait to get started with that one. And at this point, I think we could turn it over to any questions and conversation.
I just want to thank all of the members of the strategic planning team who joined us this evening, and all of our administrators. I was part of the strategic planning team along with Omar, and it was really a remarkable 2 days that we spent doing this work. I'm excited to continue doing this work and hearing updates about how this planning is going. So I want to turn it over to any questions the board might have after listening to this presentation.
We have a couple comments.
Yeah.
So I was also part of, like Sarah said, I was part of the strategic planning work, and the 2 days of discourse that ensued was really engaging and dare say riveting. Because at every point when there was a kind of a juncture, we would always ask, well, how would this most benefit students? And so what you see here today, this is like the culmination of a lot of work that is truly focused on supporting students. So thank you for inviting me to be part of the class. I really appreciate that, Steve. The other point I want to make, and nobody's really talking about it today, is that, I want to give credit where it's due. You read about what's happening in the education world today, and you read about the exodus out of the teaching profession. We're not having those conversations anymore. I mean, I stopped counting the word excited, right? We're having conversations about radically shifting the mindset, and we're not. I have plenty of districts and independent schools that are struggling to fill in their vacancies. We're very fortunate not to be in that position, and I think it's a testament to the work that has preceded us, as well as the work that this team has all done, and the leadership team that we have today. And I really can't wait to see how this translates to supporting our students and invigorating our faculty as well.
Thank you. Hi, Lou.
Can I just say one thing? Oh, I don't need to stand, do I?
Lori was also a member of the
Yes.
team.
Do I have to stand? I don't understand. All right,
You can choose.
my name is Lori Dean, and I know some folks in the room, but the reason I wanted to say something, I've been a resident of this community for 38 years. Man, I feel old. I have 2 sons that are Croton Harmon grads, and I have always been a fan of this school district. I have done a lot of volunteer work, support, and I'm on as a community member because I've done a lot of work with the village and all of that stuff, and as a parent. But tonight, when I came here, just to add my support, because I had a very playful October and I could not really invest the time to get involved with a formal presentation. But when I came here tonight and I saw my colleagues and my team members, I got this smile again that I had after the second day of our 2 days together in September. And it was, John, like you see, a little bit of, it really, I came in sitting, okay, and then went, oh yeah, we did do that. Okay, we did that. And I remember starting off the first day exhausted and the second day exhilarated. I thank you so much for the opportunity to have been a part of this group. I'm one of those community members that'll be out there saying, yes, we need to do this. Yes, we need to vote. Yes, because it's true. I mean, we are in a unique situation. I always felt with my sons, they had the opportunity to have a private school education in a public school environment. And how many times do you get that? To have the opportunity to explore differences now. I mean, this is so exciting. And I just can't, who knows where I'll be when this is all settled in, hopefully still walking around, like I said that. But, I'm thankful to be a part of it. And, I'm just a big fan of this group and everybody associated with, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we got to speak a little Latin, right, Laura?
Yes, right.
Anna?
I just want to start off by thanking everybody who participated in this committee, including my fellow board members. I agree with you. I'm going to echo a lot of sentiments here. I'm going to echo Omar's sentiment with respect to the community members that are involved, how well-spoken our students representatives are, our new faculty, our more seasoned faculty, our community members who have given 15 years of a commitment to serving our schools. It's what makes Croton such a special, unique place. So to echo John's sentiments, I too feel emotional when I hear about all of these changes and how they're overlapping in a way when we're considering the future facilities planning that's going to link up with this. And this is overlapping with some of the previous work that I know we've been doing with social emotional learning. So I just want to commend everybody's efforts with respect to that. I want to remember Dr. O'Connor and Dr. Furman, who gave us the scaffolding to be able to make these changes and risk greatly. And I want to thank this team for their innovation and all of that. I do want to just give you one note with respect to changing the label of a learning community. I hope that you will include the board as part of your learning community, because we have made it one of our goals, as you will see at a future point when we get back to the agenda, to support this community and our students and our administrative team in any way possible. So please send us stuff our way you want us to know about so that we can continue to support you in your work to help our students.
Thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I echo everything my colleagues say. Just one other thing that I'm thinking about as I hear this, and that is thinking about faculty members, thinking about teachers, and thinking about other members of our teaching community. When you start the process of being an educator and you're given those kind of roles and building blocks and things that you get, I can understand, and I think I've seen it over the years, where some get kind of, I'll call it stultified by the, by the conformity that is expected. And what I really like and what I'm so proud of about this work and the work that will continue is that we're breaking those molds, and that our faculty and our staff are so enthused and energized by that process, because we have a commitment to treat them as the educational professionals that they are and that we want them to be, so that we can have faculty members and other staff members, and I'm saying other staff members because to the extent our teacher aides and our non-teaching faculty or non-teaching staff members are part of this process, they are able to spread their wings and soar and be happy. And I'm so pleased and proud to hear the responses, both the quotes that are in the presentation and what have been described, because I want everybody, but especially the faculty who can feel beaten down, to know that we are with them and that we want to work with them to allow them to soar as professionals, so that that will help our students and our community.
I like that, I like it, SOAR instead of SORE.
We can use it.
Does anyone else have any other comments?
This one's, I'm not going to reiterate things that other people have said, only to say that this is an innovative approach. And this is an exciting, it's a creative approach. And it befits our school system, which has a long and storied history of following creative approaches, going back to the coalition of essential schools and even beyond, even farther back in history. And I think it is a great legacy that we have and a great legacy that we are going to be creating. And I thank everyone who is involved.
I will also echo what everybody has said. This is amazing work, and I was also just sitting here reading through all this and listening to all of you, and just so inspired to be a small part of this as the newest member of the board. One of the things that I'm extremely heartened to see in here is the mention of equity and inclusion clearly in some of the writing here and in the thinking. When I was listening to John talk about, the pandemic, right? And how that really was a big turning point in our society, in our world. At the same time as the pandemic was happening, there was also a racial reckoning, right? In our country, in our society, that really impacted all of our lives. And so I know, like, as a result of entities like the DI task force and, parents and people coming together to talk about these issues, and to really develop ideas and ways forward for ourselves as a society, as a community, that was very heartening to see. And it was heartening that it was possible in our community and in our school system. And I think that the issues of diversity, equity, inclusion really fit into all of the goals here. And it feels like, to me that that there is a real openness to continue the conversation, right? Because these are issues that we're going to continue to grapple with as a society, as a school system, as a community. So I just wanted to uplift that as something that I see here, and that and that I hope that we continue to foster, along with all of the other things that my colleagues have mentioned and that you all have been working on over the last several months. So thank you so much.
Anyone else have any other comments or thoughts? All right, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for this incredible presentation. We really look forward to seeing where these next steps go and where our action team groups. I think I got that name wrong.
Action team's good. You got it. You're good.
Where these move next and how they evolve. So thank you again for everyone coming. We do have a few more business items we have to take care of as a board, so we will let you all go home.
Unless you want to stay.
Unless you want to stay, we'll let you all depart. We'll take the recess and let you depart. I mean, don't hurt me.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
you.
Good night.
Thank you.
I'll give you, I'll give you that.
Thank you so much. All right, so we will now move on to agenda item 3, ongoing business. Recommended action that the Board of Education accepts the audit report prepared by Nugent and Hauser PC for the year ending June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
I'm
Well,
sorry, Omar, was that you?
Omar and then Theo. On the question?
On the question, just to reiterate, this was a. Thank you again for Denise and team for a wonderful job. It was a clean opinion. Kind of the highlights are that there was no material audit findings, no adjustments, no comments. And that for the public or anyone that's interested, the net position of the district moved up from $25.7 million to $30 million. Which is a move in the right direction.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Right, we will now move into board goals. I realized after our last business meeting that we had neglected to add this to the agenda after we had had our work session about them. So we did not have any changes that were proposed during that conversation or in follow-up to the advocacy committee. Not advocacy, board development after the fact. So recommended action that the Board of Education adopts the 2022-2023 board goals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
you were there. You
No,
were
no, no,
there.
no, I know. What I'm just saying here, and I just wanted to say that in looking at. After listening to the presentation today. And hearing how much. How exciting we are about the first 3, well, I take that back. I withdraw the possibility of saying anything.
Take that. All in favor? Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. All right, we will now move into instructional personnel. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Elizabeth Sonofrio as a 1.0 FTE elementary teacher, elementary tenure area, at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School at a salary of $74,842 MA Step 4. Ms. Sofranio, sorry, I mispronounced that the first time around, is appointed to a 3-year probationary term as an elementary teacher commencing on August 30, 2022, and probationary term ending on August 29, 2025 in the tenure area of elementary. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said teacher must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during the 3-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Ms. Sofranio has professional certification in childhood education grades 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Neil.
We'll give that to Neil. All right. On the question?
I guess. Okay, my only question is that, Ms. Sofranio is replacing Ms. Liebert. And the appointment, though, is retroactive, as you read, to August, and that would be because she had been serving as a sub, leave replacement, and so that we are, in essence, backdating the commencement date to the beginning of this next. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries.
One. Okay. Does this mean that we should go back? Do we need to do something about the leave replacement appointment? Turn to
Rescind.
rescind that.
Supersede the
effective date?
leave replacement appointment. I don't think that we've,
If it's been over 21 days.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Which it has, because she started there at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
all right, we will now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. All right, we will now move into closing of the meeting, which recommended action, the Board of Education adjourns the meeting at 9:20 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,